Hey, honey, can you get one of the kids to show me how this Twitter thing works? Honey, I need to get on Instagram. Time for more of the Rod Pedersen Show.
Thanks, folks. We are cooking with gas here in the program today. It's flying by. I did not mention the poll question today for Capital Auto Mall Universal Collision Center. It is, who will be the MVP of the NFL? We've given you two options, Patrick Mahomes and everybody else. And because Twitter is on the fritz, last I saw, we only have a Facebook poll. So, Clark, did you put that up yet? Do we have any results to say? What are they saying, Lynch?
73 Mahomes, 27 the field.
All right, 70+% Patrick Mahomes will be the MVP of the National Football League. And maybe that's where we'll start with Coach Mike Kelly, formerly of the Eagles staff, the Blue Bombers, the Eskimos. He joins us from Florida today. Coach Kelly, how you doing, sir?
Hello, sir. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Happy holidays. How are things in Bathtub Beach, Florida?
Bathtub Beach is wiped out right now. We've had because of the hurricanes coming on the lower part of the peninsula and going into the Gulf, the shore on the East Coast here, the waves have been incredible, and Bathtub Beach pretty much got wiped out. So now they got to bring in $20 million worth of sand and recoup it here this spring.
Oh, wow. Sorry to hear that. Well, hopefully by the time I come to visit, it will all be recouped and we'll be ready to hit the beach. Coach, you must have...
If I know you're coming, I'm going to get a shovel and a bucket and I'll get it done.
Okay, perfect. Lynch has a million questions for you, but I just want to start with this. As an Eskimos alum that you are, what is your take on the whole name change saga?
Well, I struggle with all of that stuff. I'm the most politically incorrect guy in the world because I also worked for the Washington Redskins. So, but I threw out Explorers there as soon as they opened up the, let's everybody give us some names. I went to Explorers right away because I think it sits well with the region, with the history of Alberta, and it does stay with the double E. And I know some people want to get away from that completely, but there's so much rich history there with the double E. It would be a shame to see that disappear also.
No kidding. We have NFL questions for you. Lynch, do you have any CFL ones for Coach Kelly before we jump to the 4th down game? You must.
Mike, what's your favorite remembrance of Saskatchewan? Let's put it that way.
I know that one.
Oh, they're all my favorites. That was the most fun that you could ever have, ever. And I'll go to the first time that I ever went to Regina and the last time. So the first time was in 1992, and it was a preseason game, and there was a lightning storm that knocked the power out in the stadium. And Tyrone Jones had just left the Bombers for the Rough Riders, and he and Cal did not leave on good terms. And I'm brand new to the league. I'm standing next to Cal on the sideline, and Cal says, "Watch this." And I don't know what he's talking about because I don't know anything about Tyrone Jones. And Cal starts baiting Tyrone and then turns around. And then Tyrone goes off on a tirade on me. I don't even know who he is. And he's calling me Cal's new bald-headed step and fetch boy and everything else. And but it was cool to go there the first Labor Day game. And back at Old Taylor Field, the people would sit on the rooftops, and it was just the energy is like nothing else. I've been in a couple of Grey Cup games, and going to play in Regina when you're a Winnipeg Blue Bomber, there's an adrenaline rush that you can't even imagine. And back in those days, it was such a pleasure to hang your clothes up on one single nail up in the wall. But just the energy of the people and the excitement of it, and sitting on roofs and waving flags, and the band, the people playing the drums and watermelons on their head. I was just in complete awe my first year in the league. And then in 2009, when I returned as the head coach, I had incorrectly been labeled with something that was said that I simply repeated, but I somehow got tied on to me. And so I'm sitting before the game with Cal Murphy on the bench, and he says, "You should run out with a watermelon helmet on." And I started laughing. I said, that would be awesome. This place would absolutely explode. And we sent a guy to go get a watermelon helmet, and I was going to run out on the field to open the game with the watermelon helmet on, and I had already signed it, and it said, I love this game, Mike Kelly. And I had it on the chair in the locker room. And when I came back in to get it to go run out on the field, somebody had taken it because they didn't think it was a good idea. I was having some fun, and I loved going to Regina. I love the Rough Riders and the rivalry with the Blue Bombers. And if somebody hasn't ever been to that game, you're really missing out on something, because I've coached all over North America, and that is absolutely special.
So, Frenzy's got a bit of a scoop here on where the CFL's going, and I want your take on it, Lynch, and that's about the quarterback salaries. Tell us all what you heard last night, and I want Mike's reaction.
Well, a gentleman who says he's an old Rough Rider fan, he knows executive members, but he wouldn't tell me who in particular. He said the executive he knows and the whole league is going towards $300,000 quarterbacks. That's it. Maximum $300,000 for a quarterback, and I said it'll be a disaster. It won't work. Yeah, he'll get $300,000 quarterbacks, but they won't be any good. I don't think the league could survive with $300,000 quarterbacks, Mike, and I don't think you could either. We've got quarterbacks being $500,000 now to $850,000, and we're going to have to keep that up there to keep it competitive. You can't fool the fans, can you?
Well, you're going to be kind of surprised by what I'm going to say, because I think they're $50,000 over. I think it should be $250,000. Right now, there's not a quarterback in the Canadian Football League right now that would have started for any of the teams in 1993 or 94. They're not one of them. And you can start looking back at all the quarterbacks that played in that era. You're looking at Hall of Famers on nearly every team: Matt Dunnigan, Damon Allen, Tracy Ham, Danny McManus. Eventually Anthony Cavill, although in those days he wasn't anywhere near, and nobody could have predicted at that time what he would end up being. Danny Barrett. It goes on, and I don't think there's a quarterback in the league right now that would have started in 93 or 94 in the Canadian Football League. The other thing, I think that the league gets itself in its own conundrums with the salary management system that they have, and I wouldn't be opposed to having positional salary limitations, that each game, each player, if you're a positional player, you get $5,000, $5,500 a game, and the quarterbacks, you might want to go to $7,500 a game. I don't even know where that math actually works out, but the guys have no other place to play. There's no other place for them to go. So if you want to play and you're going to complain about getting $250,000 a year for 6 months of work and not having the same time demands on you as you do in the NFL, then there's something wrong. There's something wrong. I think the league has spent to its limit. Every person knows, with your own personal budget, if you're spending all the way to your budget every single month, it's going to be a struggle for you. And that's what the league has done for decades. And it's got to get out of that cycle. And so I think, in actuality, they ought to even out, and there's always going to be that thing, paying the American a little bit more than the Canadian. You can say all you want about that doesn't happen. It absolutely does, because you have to entice the American to come up. I'm still a believer of get those Americans ingrained in your community. Find them a job in the off season that fits what their degree was coming out of college, because let's face it, if you're a pro athlete, that's a part-time job. You're lucky to make it past 27 years old as an athlete. Now you got the rest of your life to go work. And most of them aren't going to make enough money that'll be generational, that they can go ahead and live off of that the rest of their lives. You got to go to work. Well, why not prepare them to do that? And so Mike, I'm not a proponent of having $500,000 to $800,000 quarterbacks. And I truly don't believe that there's a quarterback in the league right now that deserves that kind of money.
Yeah, but if they make that cutback, they're thinking about doing it in the next few years. So you're going to take the guys with the existing $700,000 salaries, $500,000 salaries, and say, hey, I got some good news for you and some bad news. You got a job, but your salary's cut to $300,000. Cutting them back $300,000 or $400,000.
Yeah, how do you do that?
How do you do it? Tell me how you do it, Mike.
Well, there's a couple of things there, and I was with the Redskins, and they didn't know how to handle a salary cap to save their lives. We were always bringing in veterans to renegotiate so we could sign somebody else, and it's a tough situation. It's a hard thing, but again, where else are they going to play? And you're still making $300,000 a year, and you're going to moan and groan about that. Otherwise, you say okay, and you throw a hissy fit, and you go away, and now you get nothing. Because you're not going to go. Very few of them. I don't see them going to the NFL. And now what? Now you better have that degree, and I hope you can get hired as at 20, 30 years old. 27, 30 years old, as compared to a company hiring somebody at 22 years old, and they can pay them less too. So you're stuck between a hard and a rock place. If you want to play football and you want to make $250,000, $300,000 a year, but you're really only working about 6 months. The rest of the time you're working out and watching film and nothing like a 9-to-5 job. Then that's what you do, and you adapt and adjust.
Absolutely. And guys, can you find that question for Coach Kelly from Devon in BC about the locker room fight, if you can? And the other thing by these, Mike Riley, Bo Levi, even Cody Fajardo, they've all been looked at by the NFL, had a cup of coffee in the NFL. And the XFL, Mike, I don't think is an option because that's a developmental league. Those quarterbacks are all young, correct?
Yeah. They're really, when I was in the CFL originally, and I was working as the director of Canadian player personnel, and that's where I started to get to know a lot of people in the NFL. There was in those days, pretty much if a CFL player got to be 27 years old, the NFL wasn't going to look at you anymore. That was it. You had to be under 27 for the NFL to really consider you. Dieter Brock was an absolute, aberration going to the Rams as old as he was. But, I just don't see any of these guys going to play in the NFL, and I don't see them in a position. They may compete to be the number 2, but you're looking at practice roster opportunities, and the ones that are good players in the league now that are getting a significant salary, they're going to be too old for the NFL to mess with. So again, you do what you have to do. Everybody has their own challenges, and you adapt and adjust and do what you have to do. After I, was let go by the Bombers, my next coaching job was at a high school in Fort Myers, Florida. So you think that that's really what I wanted to do? But I knew it was my avenue to get back into coaching. I had been representing NFL players, and that was nice, but it didn't give me the same juice that coaching did. And, getting back and getting back on the field and instructing players, that's what you do. So if you want to be a football player, you go be a football player.
Exactly.
And, that's what it is.
Guys, can we get that comment or the question from Devin? Because I got 2 questions for Coach Kelly before we let him go here. Where is it? There we go. Hi, Mike. Were you part of the Blue Bombers staff when both offensive and defensive lines got into a locker room scrap that Westwood always talks about? Were you around for that? Do you know that?
No, I think that was the year before me. I think that was when Darryl Rogers was the head coach for one season of the Bombers. And there was a lot of, from what I understand, a lot of discourse on that team in 1991. And that's why Cal cleared house. And Cal's idea at that time was they needed a restart. And if you look, the only coach that Cal hired in 1992, he kept Urban Bowman on the staff, but everybody else he hired, none of us had CFL experience. Not one of us. Frank Spaziani, who ended up, going to Calgary, and myself, Charlie Carpenter, who ended up being a longtime line coach in the league. None of us had CFL experience. Cal wanted fresh eyes, if you want to call it that, a new way of thinking. And he gutted out that locker room and got rid of what he thought were cancerous cells by that point. And then I'd have to say that, and I was talking with Jed Roberts, old Edmonton Eskimo. I guess he's still an Eskimo. Once an Eskimo, always an Eskimo. But we were going back and forth on Facebook about, our good friend Chris Johnstone passing away. And in my entire career, 38 years of being involved in it, there was never a team chemistry as good as what I experienced with the 93 and 94 Bombers. There's just I can't even compare it to anything. We were all truly brothers, loved each other, and to this day, we're all really good friends. I go back to Winnipeg. I'm still trying to keep up with Walby and Mikowas and drinking beers, and I can't do it. I just can't do it.
There's a bit of a size mismatch there, let's be honest.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Lastly, I need your take on the Eagles. I'm loving the coverage out of ESPN. I'm sure you watch that every day, too. They're saying how bloodthirsty they are in Philly if things aren't going right. I mean, it's only a couple of years away from them winning. And who goes first? Doug Peterson, Carson Wentz, or what's your take?
Well, Philadelphia is really an interesting city to coach in, and I've coached at the pro level in Philadelphia, and I've coached at the collegiate level in Philadelphia, and it's a what have you done for me lately place. They want immediate results, and they want positive results, and if they don't think things are right, man, those fans will get on you right now. And Philly is a no-nonsense town in every sense of the word, and they've got a disconnect in there, and anybody that's playing pro football at any level, you're a good football player. So they got good football players. And so that excuse of guys are hurt, and everybody uses it. But there's other football players out there. So, take a real hard look at what you're doing structurally. And are you bringing in adequate players? Yeah, they're good players, but are they really what you need? How much of a drop off is there when a player goes down and your number two has to play? And then take a look at your structure. They obviously had the right culture there a few years ago, but have you let that slide? Take a good hard look at yourself and assess and be honest with yourself. Are you doing the same things for the culture of that locker room and that entire organization right now that you were doing when you were successful? And what I'll bet that they find is that they've gotten a little lazy, that they've backed off a few of the things where before they had the throttle down, they've kind of brought it back a little bit because, we got this now. These guys know what it is. You have to reinforce it every single day. And that's one of the beauties of Bill Belichick is that, he talks about, you got to build a new wall every year, brick by brick. And most of the time that I've found when your program starts to slip, you're not paying enough attention to the culture of it and your processes, and you got to get back and do a real a reevaluation of it. And sometimes it's just too late for you. And I think we might be getting to that point. Although I know Howie Rosen very, very well, the general manager. He's very analytical. He's very patient. He's a level-headed guy. I'm sure that they'll take a good look at it and see what needs to be done and then make adjustments from there. But, you don't just dump a quarterback. They're not going to dump Carson Wentz. There's still too much money on the books. And so he's not going anywhere right now. And the cheapest way is always to get rid of the coach. That's always just the easiest and cheapest way. Just get rid of the coach. And that's always not the right answer either.
Oh, I know. And they could still win the division. Coach Kelly, great as always. Merry Christmas, my friend. Keep in touch. I appreciate the time as always.
Great talking to you, Mike.
No, you guys are the best. I really enjoy this show. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you, Mike.
Take care.
Appreciate it, man. Let's do it again soon. Mike Kelly. Coach Mike Kelly. What a character. One of the CFL's all-time greatest right there.
That's for sure.
You love him, eh, Lynch?
Great guy, yep.
I do
knew him
too.
when he was a coach. And he's always easy to talk to. Always willing to talk to the media. Good guy.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.